Hi, this is Craig Dalton with the CCPA Playbook. So today we have a good friend of mine, Cecil Jackson. Cecil, how are you today, buddy?
I'm good, sir. How you doing? It's good seeing you.
Good. So just so for our listeners to know, we this is the second episode. The first episode we had Darren Pillsbury, who is the assistant property appraiser over our organization. Cecil, I don't know if you read or saw it, but he's. I wrote an article about Darren about quiet leadership. He's been in our organization for a long time, and so he was our. Darren was our first in-person guest, and then you are our first Zoom slash on the computer guest. So congratulations to you,
I
Cecil.
feel honored. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Believe me, I'm very honored.
Yeah, so Cecil Jackson is down in Palm Beach County Property Appraiser's office. So Cecil, why don't you tell our listeners about you that don't know who you are?
Yeah, well, hi, Craig. Thanks again. The Honorable Craig Dalton allows me to grace this podcast. I'm Cecil Jackson. I am the Chief Appraiser here in Palm Beach County. I work for the Honorable Dorothy Jacks, who's the Property Appraiser here in Palm Beach. I've been here, it will be 3 years in June, which is next month. And prior to that, I worked in North Carolina in property assessments for over 30 years. I worked in Watauga County, which is in a small little town in Boone, North Carolina, home of the App State Mountaineers. Go
Which you
Mountaineers.
are a graduate of, right? Are you
I
graduated there?
am. I did. So I had to say that. I had to plug them. And I left, worked there for about 4 years. I left and moved to Mecklenburg County, which is in Charlottetown, Mecklenburg County. I worked there for 24 years as an appraiser, then became a commercial residential manager of the assessment department. And then I left there and became the property tax director in Gaston County, which is the neighboring county, of about a little over 100,000 parcels. And I was there for almost 3 years. And I was lucky enough to come and work here in Palm Beach and work for Dorothy. So
So when you were in Gadsden County, is that when you were on the IAAO board?
I was. So I ran for the IAAO board in 2019, I guess, for 2020 through 2022. And I was lucky enough to I guess, get enough votes to allow me to be on the board. And then I actually, the same time, took a job in Gaston uh, in late September of that year of 2019. So yes, that's how I started.
So, for those that don't know, IAAO is the association or organization that really kind of sets the standards for our industry worldwide, not just United States. It is a worldwide organization, and Cecil was on the board of that organization. So, neat story. I know Cecil's going to get mad at me for saying this, but as when I was first in office, my first year, 2021, the IAAO had a conference. They have a national conference every year. So, for instance, this year it's in Orlando. Uh, Last year it was in Denver. But that first year in 2021 for me, it was in Chicago, Illinois, and that was my first year as the Citrus County Property Appraiser. I go up to Chicago to learn more about our industry, network with folks, and so one of the sessions that was there, Cecil Jackson just happened to be presenting on with a great former IAAO president, Pat Alexandrini. He also just I don't know if he's retired or is he still with Hillsborough.
I think he's still at Hillsborough, yeah, I think he's still
So,
there.
yeah, I think he's still there too. So Pat and Cecil are given a presentation on intentional recruiting, and it was a session. Again, I didn't really know anybody at the time, and Cecil's up there, and what it felt like to me, hundreds of people in this room, and they're there to listen to Cecil and Pat give a conversation about intentional recruiting. On one of the things that I think I've always heard over the last few years is how it's going to be very difficult to recruit and retain employees in the property appraiser's office, and so that was a very impactful conversation to listen to by you and Pat. I was so impressed with you that I actually walked up and handed you my business card, and I said, "Listen, I respect the heck out of everything you just said, and I'd love to network with you and be friends with you and lean on you." And you're like, "Whatever I need to do to help you, man, I will help you." And so at the time you were in North Carolina, and then I want to say it was a year or two later, because when did you start with Palm Beach in 22?
23 years ago. What year is this? Yeah, 22.
22, yeah. So a year later, I run into you, and I'm like, holy cow, this is a guy that I just saw on a stage in Chicago, and now you're in Florida, and so we've sort of been friends ever since. So I appreciate you.
Well, thank you too, Craig. First of all, I'm kind of embarrassed and very humble because he brings that up every time we talk about something. But
Every
Craig's
time.
he's an awesome guy, and I've sat through quite a few of his sessions at now IAAO events or our conference, and I've heard him speak, and he's very dynamic, and he controls an audience very well, and he's very engaging, and I learned a lot from Craig. So I don't take anything. I'm very inspired by the things that he does and the things that he's done throughout his career since I've known him. And by the way, I still have your business card. It's in the stack of all these.
Oh, I,
So
oh, I don't have yours. I'm not gonna lie. I don't think I have yours. Well, what's funny is, and so I just, when you were up there, not just about intentional recruiting or about the property appraiser world, but I really was like, I don't want to use the word hero, but man, I was like, man, I want to do that. Like, I want to get up on a stage and I want to help other people learn how to do different things. And so when I watched you, I was like, so a lot of the people that are listening are going to know, I had a really bad speech impediment. You may not know this. I had a stuttering problem for a long time,
oh wow,
and so public speaking for me was not a good thing for me, and I still do it on occasion, but I was in awe of guys like you and Pat and other people that could get up and do that and motivate people, and so I really kind of forged ahead and wanted to do more of what you did and on a bigger stage. So it wasn't just about intentional recruiting; it was about talking about our industry and how can we help people. So when I got my first big, feel like speaking event, was at the IAAO conference in Salt Lake City. So Nancy, my wife, my beautiful wife, went out there with me, and because I was nervous, like I was super nervous, and I mean I could talk locally easily to different groups, HOAs, taxing authorities, whatever, but that was like my first big one. Like I felt
oh
like was a
wow.
big one, and so you and Dorothy were in the audience, and I will never forget that, and I appreciate the support that you gave me for that. So that was pretty cool.
Well, it was very dynamic. Your hour-long session, and I can tell you, even Dorothy, after it was over, she's like, "That was really good. It was incredible. You did a great job, and
Well,
you need to continue to do that. Hopefully, when I introduce you this year at conference in Orlando as your moderator, that
yeah,
you'll
man.
make it out again."
I'm excited. I was fortunate to talk in Salt Lake City, in Denver. I did Denver. I spoke in Denver,
All right.
and then so it's in Orlando this year, and I'm excited because I really feel like our industry, the property appraiser industry, and really government as a whole doesn't talk about good positive leadership, and
I
so
agree.
that's really when I do presentations. Listen, we have some really super smart people that will talk about how to set good values and all the GIS maps and how do you handle exemptions and stuff like that, but we really need to be talking about leadership, and so I've really kind of honed in on that component with IAAO. So I feel good about that. So
Well,
fun to do.
you do a great job, and I'm not trying to toot your horn, but I am at the same time. I hope in the near future you'll run for the IAAO board and eventually become president, and we can
I don't
tell our
know about
story.
that.
You'll do a great job. So
I don't
you're,
know about that, but maybe if I have you running my campaign, maybe it'll be good.
I'll help you.
Will you?
I know. Yeah, heck yeah,
All
man.
right.
Just let me know.
We'll see. We'll see. We have a good representation on the IAAO board, and Scott Russell out of Monroe County right now. So he's got to do that for a couple of years.
Yeah. Well, you've got 2 years, and then you're up next. So we'll
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 see.
get you in a good spot.
We'll see.
All right.
So how does that, it's funny that I just thought of this. You did a presentation with Pat Alessandrini, who is a former IAAO president. So that's a big deal. And then now you work for Dorothy Jacks, who is also a former IAAO president. And so for people that are listening that don't understand, that is a big, big deal, to be the IAAO president, of something that is international. So, I mean, you're not only friends with Pat, but now your coworkers, or your boss is Dorothy Jack. So that's pretty
Right.
amazing.
Yeah, yeah, I'm pretty fortunate and lucky. I think this industry that, it's a very small knit group of people, even though it's international, we have over 8,000 members who are members of IAAO. That's just the membership. But you get to meet a lot of people during these conferences, and like you said, networking.
Yep.
And I was fortunate enough to meet Dorothy years ago when she first became president. I didn't know, I knew about IAAO, but I didn't know how to uh, be part of the committee or task force or be able to help volunteer in that organization. And she gave me that opportunity, and she placed me on a committee. And that's when I first met her in Kansas City, and we talked, and I was like, man, she's pretty cool. And then actually had dinner with her uh, in Canada when we had it at Niagara Falls.
Hmm.
And by chance, we sat at the same table and we started talking, and you know, we kind of caught up a little bit. And then 3 years later, here I am working for her, which is kind of crazy, right?
So Dorothy Jacks is an amazing human being. She's been in your office for a number of years. Just like you have, you said that she was a mentor for you. She's been a mentor for me as a new property appraiser. We have 67 counties in Florida, and there's about a good handful of them, that I lean on the property appraisers as counsel, as advisors, as mentors. And I don't think that there's any better person in the state, than Dorothy Jacks to learn from as a sitting elected official, as a property appraiser. Dorothy has been amazing, and I'm a huge fan of hers. And so it's always been good. So I know what you're feeling, because I feel the same thing, with Dorothy for
Oh,
sure.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't pick up and move from Charlotte
Yeah.
to, to Florida unless I knew that, I was working for a really good person and a person with integrity and who's a mentor and someone you can rely on, right? So,
Yeah.
um, I'm very fortunate to be obviously in Florida, but be working for her as well.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about the move, right? How many? So North Carolina, for those that don't, let's hit that first. What are
Okay.
the differences? Just ish. What are the smaller, differences from maybe North Carolina appraising to Florida, assessing or appraising?
Okay. So we all do the same thing, right? We use the three approaches to value. We're looking at markets, properties, income. Anyway, income, sales, and the market approach, right? Or cost approach. The only differences I saw here was kind of an eye opener for me, is the Saver Homes exemption or SOH
Yep.
caps. There's no caps in North Carolina, right? And they only do assessments. You're required to do assessments every 8 years, an 8-year period from your last reassessment, or every 4 years. Typically, most counties do it every 4 years because they have properties that are I've just lost train of thought. Public utilities like railroads and airplanes and so forth. So they pay their value is based on the assessment ratio of the entire population of the county, right? So if the value falls below 90% and it's at 80%, they pay 80% on 80% of their value each year. And
Wow.
every time the assessment drops compared to the market. So if the market values continue to increase and your assessment values start to decline, and that gap in between there, that ratio is what the public utilities pay their taxes on. So that's why counties do it every 4 years, because the fourth year they get audited for that ratio. So it kind of forces counties to do that, and then also it's a trigger now that you have to do it every 4 years, or if you receive a letter from the Department of Revenue saying that your assessment ratio countywide population has dropped below a certain percentage. So
So
the
they
following,
have. So North Carolina has a Department of Revenue as well.
yes, they do. And it governs a lot of, or yeah, it governs a lot of in statutes. They do a lot of the same things we do here in Florida.
So same as Florida.
Same
Are
as Florida.
the are the assessors or appraisers in North Carolina elected or are they appointed?
They're all appointed. So every all there's 100 counties in North Carolina, and out of that, they're all every appraiser, or you would call them assessors or administrators, directors. They're all or not elected. Excuse me. They're all appointed, and they're usually appointed on a 4-year term.
I'm going to throw a curveball at you. Which one do you think is better for the citizen, an appointed one or an elected one?
I think an elected official.
Yeah,
Now, being a former appointed appraiser or property appraiser or whatever you want to call them in North
sure.
Carolina, you're governed by the Board of County Commissioners. So you report to them. They're basically you're their employer, right? Or they're your employer.
Hmm.
And so at any moment they could say, "Hey, Cecil, we don't like you anymore because you blah blah blah," or there's no level of security there, but obviously you're dealing with 7 to 8 different opinions at one time too. Um, I think being an elected official also means that the population thinks that you can do that job, and it gives you abilities to understand the needs of the community as well as folks throughout the state. Um, but I think it's a little bit of both. It just depends. There's a lot of good assessors or appraisers in North Carolina that could do. They would probably be elected if they had to run. I mean, they
Hmm.
have clerk of court, things like that. Those are elected officials, but the appraisers, they're all appointed. So I don't think there's much of a difference. It's just who you report to.
Do you think the appointed ones becomes more political because now you are answering to a board?
I think it can at times, and excuse me, but as an appraisers or excuse me, assessors, we have integrity and ethics, right?
Sure.
So there are times that I've gotten calls and say, "Hey, I need you to look at so and so and give me your opinion." And I dealt a lot with the county manager, even though I reported to the board. I went through her as like our conduit, and I would be honest with them, like, "There's nothing here, or we need to make an adjustment, and this is the reasons why, and this is what we could do statutorily or legally." Uh, and they pretty much left me alone. I mean, but I've seen other parts of other counties in North Carolina where that was become an issue with some people, and there was some political push here and there, and a lot of those assessors don't last long, right? So
Yeah.
most of the county commissioners typically leave their appraisers or assessors, let them do their jobs because they know what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
But there's that here and there. It just
I will
depends.
tell you, like when we just did a Citizens Academy yesterday. I'll just say roughly 20 people in there, all 20 of them not from Florida, right? And so a lot of them are used to like what you're talking about, the appointed assessors. And then so I explain what the difference is, right? So
All right.
I answer to, we have 160,000 residents. That's who I answer to. I don't answer to the taxing authority. So like we have I like always, I'm going to try to compare so our listeners can kind of understand. We have 7 taxing authorities in Citrus County. How many do y'all have in Palm Beach?
39.
That's a lot. And
Yeah.
so, like, I don't answer to the 7 taxing authorities. You don't answer to the 39. You answer to the citizens of Palm Beach County, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to
That's
me, that's a relief, right? I don't, because I feel like, whereas, yes, most 99% of the assessors in the world are going to be ethical, travel the right road. They're going to do the right things. But there could be some avenue of play there. But I don't feel like my position is political at all. I just don't. But I don't allow it to be. I don't care, Republican, Democrat, Baptist, Catholic, male, female, it doesn't matter. Like value is value, and so, but I think that they're in places where there are appointed assessors, there is always an opportunity for something, you know.
right.
So
I would agree with you. And here in Palm Beach, Dorothy's has the same mindset as you do.
yeah,
People are people, properties are properties. There's no difference between Republicans, Independents, or Democrats, right? They're all, she serves the general public
public,
population,
yeah,
and that's what we're here
doesn't
for.
matter.
Right.
Yep.
Absolutely.
You know, it got me. I am a little curious. You're from, you're from Boone. You went to App State. We deal with We have had in Citrus County alone, or the west coast of Florida. I know Palm Beach has been sort of fortunate in this lately, but um, we've had four hurricanes in 2 years. Four hurricanes and three tornadoes hit Citrus County. And so that the last one obviously went into Boone. How is Boone? Do you still have people in Boone that you talk to? I know Boone was pretty destroyed by this the last that 100-year storm that hit. How are the Carolinas? Do you know?
Yeah, so you've got Western North Carolina where Boone is, and you have Southwestern North Carolina where Asheville, that
Yep.
area is.
Yep.
It was probably impacted more than Boone itself. Boone Boone got flooded. Now imagine North Carolina mountains being flooded, which is kind of crazy. Thinking that it's nothing but runoff. It runs down into the Catawba River, down to Lake Norman, into Charlotte, all the way down to the coast, right, of South Carolina and North Carolina. But you would never think that a mountain town would be flooded. Well, it did get. They had some damage, but not anything substantial compared to the southwestern part of the state.
Sure.
My mom and sister and I have family still live there.
Oh,
They weren't impacted that as bad, but there was a lot of down trees and a lot of flooding throughout the town. Actually, even close. My kid goes to college there at App State, and they uh, released them from school last semester of spring of last year, so they didn't go to school for almost 3 months. It was just because
crazy.
they're the dormitories were flooded and the cars were pretty much wiped out. So they got impacted, but nothing like the southwestern part of North Carolina. That was just devastating. I mean, there were
Well,
towns that are gone.
I hear that the Blue Ridge Parkway is still not open,
Parts
right?
of it, yes. Parts of it.
That's crazy. And
Yeah.
I think so. Like I have a buddy of mine. He's actually here in Citrus County now, just for the week. He lives right outside of Raleigh, and we talk about it because he's from Florida, so he's used to hurricanes. We're used to the hurricanes because we're ready for it. But nobody in that Northeast Georgia, South Carolina, South North Carolina, Tennessee, they go to bed. You guys go to bed, and they're like, we're just going to sleep because this is not going to even come close to us. And then you wake
Absolutely.
up and everything's flooded,
It's
and
it, that is amazing, right? I think the last time we had something like this happen was Hurricane Hugo, and I was a freshman
uh,
in college. That was 1988 or something.
yeah,
And it impacted Charlotte. It pretty much wiped a lot of the city out. And I remember being in the mountains and the windows were shaking in my parents' house. And I'm like, what the heck's going on? It was the hurricane that was coming
crazy.
through the mountains. So, I mean, that was almost 40 years ago, right? So here we are, full circle, and there's
Yeah.
cities or little towns that are gone, which is
Well,
incredible.
in like I said, we prepare for it because we know it's coming or could come or could turn, but nobody knew that was going to happen in that little area
Oh,
in that area. And that's the scary part. Well,
yeah,
I can
yeah.
tell you, like our obviously our thoughts and prayers are with those everybody that's still kind of affected by all that, and my friend Brad, who is in Raleigh right now, he says they do like I say mission. Their church does mission trips
Uh-huh.
and tries to help rebuild. What's crazy is he said that the Amish have gone in. Have you heard these? The Amish, because they can build cities very quickly, and so they've gone in and built little micro towns in the affected areas so people can at least have a roof over their head.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, so that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, it's unfortunate, but yeah, no one's ever prepared for a hurricane, not like you
Not
guys
like
or
that.
us in Florida, right?
Yeah,
And we're fortunate not to have a hurricane since I've been here. I think it's been like almost 20 years since one's impacted this side of Florida, or at least the
yeah,
southeastern part. So, um, no, but Dorothy's always saying we need to be prepared. We got to be prepared. We got to be prepared. And she's absolutely right. I mean, we had the tornado touchdown back in October that
mm,
affected a few properties here. Well, probably about, I think it was like 100 properties maybe. And I did some physical inspections, went out in the field with some guys to look at those, and it was amazing to see cars laying on tops of people's homes and things like that. It's just crazy.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: what do you think is the biggest surprise to you coming from North Carolina, being an assessor up there, to Palm Beach County? What has been the biggest surprise to you to work in Palm Beach County and that property appraiser's office, or in Florida as a whole?
I think honestly, it's just doing a reassessment, an annual reassessment. Like I said, we don't do that. They don't do that in North Carolina. It's every 4 years typically. Um, and there's a process through that, but the capping thing, right? So there's no three caps or 10 caps in North Carolina. You just, everything gets reassessed. Every property in the county um, gets a reassessment notice, and the millage rates are typically what they call a tax rate there is really low, right? And it stays constant for 3+ years, and then the fourth year it gets reassessed. Values either go up or down. So people know exactly what they're going to have in terms of their assessed values, but
Yeah.
there's a state income tax there as well, right? So, uh, but the impact on terms of assessments, uh, I think that was the telltale sign. I still had to wrap my brain around that. I'm like, what do you mean three cap? What do you mean 10 cap? And then when my wife and I bought a house here, I was like, oh, now I know what they're talking about. We're the folks now that are if we homestead, which we did, now we're going to get a reassessment on our property because we purchased it and the lady we bought it from was there for 20 years,
Oh,
right? So I
yeah.
told her, I said, our taxes are going to triple, which they did. And I was prepared for it. But I'm like, wow, now I understand why people say, oh my gosh, it's cheap to live in Florida until they, a lot of transplants, right? Transient folks who move here, they're like,
Yeah.
we thought it was cheap here. I'm like, well, it is and it isn't, but you've got to be a property owner for a number of years in order to see that benefit, right?
Do you see the property taxes, are they about, I say equal, I don't want to use that word, it's such a weird word. Do you think they're on par with North Carolina? Is it, because a lot of places you hear from, like if you go up north, they're like, oh my God, the property taxes are crazy high up north as compared to Florida, even with a reevaluation or a reassessment. Is it similar?
Well, yes and no. Let's put it this way. I, my wife and I have sold our house, probably our dream home. It was a 4,000 square foot house, 4 bedrooms, 4 baths, 2.5 car garage on a 3/4 of an acre lot on a lake, right? And our tax bill was around $6,000 a year,
Mm,
and we downsized basically to move here. Now, economy of scale and being in a different location and being in Palm Beach County, um, yeah, our tax bill increased almost $4,000 annually, and we live in a 2,400 square foot house. And not saying anything about it, it's great, but I'm saying
yeah,
our
it's
house, if we
different.
move that house, if we move that house here, it would probably be worth $2 to $3 million, right?
Oh,
But
to Palm Beach
but
County. To
in
Palm
Palm
Beach
Beach
County.
County, in Palm Beach County, right? But I tell people, I'm like, I guess it all equals out. It just depends on how you look at it. No state income tax, they pay it there, right? Your taxes are lower, or tax rates are lower there. And I
Mm,
lived in the county with the highest tax rate at one point. It was like 89 cents to every $100. So and now you're looking at, and then I lived in Charlotte, it was 42 cents to every $100. So you can see the huge dynamics of shift of there, right? But I think that um, that's the biggest, I think, shift or difference. It's just knowing that you're moving to a desirable area, especially during COVID, and everyone is moving to Florida, and a lot of folks were moving south and living in South Florida and living in Central Florida, the West Coast, and they wanted to be somewhere where they could be outdoors, have freedoms, and I think that increased the
mm,
market, obviously, right? That we're seeing
yeah.
here, and I mean, even the trends I've seen over the last 10 years being here in Palm Beach County of how much values have increased over a course of 10 years is phenomenal. Even including the assessed values, have they increased almost 50%,
In
which
your, so we sent our estimated values to our taxing authorities yesterday. Did you guys do the same thing, or when are you
we
guys
did.
sending your values?
We
Yeah,
we sent
yesterday.
those Wednesday. Yes.
So just out of curiosity, what county, just your county, your unincorporated, how much did that increase from last year? Ours was 7% on our estimated values from last year. What does that compare to you guys?
We're pretty much spot on. We're about 7 3/4, almost 8%.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
mean that's, ours is tough because we have Crystal River, so that's a city municipality taxing authority, and they got devastated by the last few hurricanes, and so they're not at 7%, and so that's a little tough pill to swallow. But there's nothing we can do about it. That's just Mother Nature, and
Yeah.
but with our county, it was so this year it was 7%. In the previous year, it was 10%. So we're definitely seeing a lot of net. or a lot of new construction, as to say. I don't want to say net new, but new construction value that's been added
Yeah,
for
how much
sure.
new construction value was added, if you don't mind me asking, if you could divulge?
Uh, I don't have the number off the top of my head. I can get that for you. But
That's okay.
I have to think about that for a second. I want to say it's about 550 million, if I had to
Yeah, we
guess.
we surpassed 5 billion again for 2 years in a row.
Billion. Yeah,
5 billion.
billion.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about Palm Beach County.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we've added like almost 4,000 new homes, 3,700 new apartment units, and about 800 new condos. Yeah.
You would think y'all
So
would run out of room down there.
we have so much space on the western part of the county. Like you go
But like
west,
near the Everglades?
out toward Wellington. I live in
Uh,
Wellington,
mhm.
north of Wellington, up near Jupiter, west of that, all the
Oh
way
yeah.
out. There's a lot. I mean, as you know, Palm Beach County is
I like how you pointed that direction, like I'm supposed to know where you're
yeah, that,
pointing.
that direction there,
Yeah,
right?
that direction. Like okay, I get it now that you pointed that direction. I
Yeah.
know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of land that's still undeveloped, but there's a
Mhm.
lot of new communities that have come up, or new towns like Westlake. It's
Oh yeah.
a thriving new community. I mean, they had a ton of new construction, and you know how that works. That's on top of the tax base, so not including their market values and their
Yep.
assessments. So you're seeing additional new homes and value being placed on there, and all the how the school tax works. So those folks are being affected by that, but that's just the nature of the beast.
How many vacant do you well, let's see if I can okay, you just stumped me for a second. How many vacant residential do you have?
Oh my
Vacant
gosh.
residential parcels.
Out of 650 some thousand parcels, that's a good question, Craig. I would not know the answer to
Ah,
that.
we have about we have about 60,000 vacant platted parcels.
Oh wow.
Third highest in the state.
I'll have to look. I'll have to get you an answer to that because that's a
See?
really good question.
Yeah, well, you stumped me. I figured I would stump you. I'm gonna see if I can. I'm gonna see if I can get your answer though.
I'm gonna write a note here to myself. Um, you probably answer
Oh,
that
see,
because you can.
I was way off. We have uh, taxable net new construction 442 million.
Oh wow, that's
Wait,
a
let me
lot.
make sure. Let me make sure I'm reading the right zeros. Yep. Okay, I was making sure we weren't in the billion phase like with y'all.
That's a lot, Craig. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, and we're growing. I mean, we have the next time you're up this way, I have to take you to it, but we have an area that we're really really so you guys have the turnpike
uh-huh.
that kind of you have Turnpike 95, and we have what's called the Suncoast Parkway or the Veterans. I will just call it
Okay.
the Suncoast Parkway that comes up from Tampa, and so those extensions are reaching into Citrus County now, and so we're seeing a lot of portability, a lot of people moving from Hillsborough, Pinellas, Pasco, Hernando County, and living in Citrus.
Oh wow.
So right now, where the Veterans is, or the Suncoast Parkway has a stop, they're going to keep going, but that area going crazy right now. So much new construction, so much commercial, so much residential. It's a lot.
That's pretty incredible. I mean, if you think about that, that's a good thing, and it could
It
be.
Yeah, it's a good thing, but the problem is, when they knew this was coming 10, 15 years ago, we and I don't want to get into the politics of all this, but they didn't the infrastructure is not there,
Yeah.
and so that's the issue. But as you and I both know, we only worry about what happens value-wise. We can't worry about all that stuff. So let me ask you this. This is going to be a leadership question. How many employees did you have under you in North Carolina before
In
you left?
Gaston County, there were a total. I did collections too, so I was the collector, which was a
You were the
really
tax
fun
collector
job.
too?
Yes.
Ah,
Yeah.
see, like I don't mind throwing. Hey, listen, we're just a property appraiser. We don't collect taxes. You have to go to the tax collector's office for that.
Yeah, I
But you
did
did both.
the collections as well as
Oh, wow.
foreclosures and assessments. Yeah, and we also do motor vehicles, including boats. So yeah, it was a. All right. So what was your question again?
I wanted to know how many employees because I know how many you have under Palm Beach County, but how many employees did you have in North Carolina?
Roughly about 80.
How many
Yeah,
do you have
wasn't a
now?
lot. about 240.
Yeah, so that's a
And
jump.
yeah, I think before I got here it was like 250 something.
Now, is that total? That's not
Yes.
total for your. Oh, that's total for your office.
Yes.
Okay, so I know maybe Broward just has. They have crazy amount, like
Yeah.
380 or something. So, but
They
still,
have
240. That's a lot. How many offices do you guys have?
So we have our main office here, which is downtown West Palm. We have one up in Jupiter. We have one in Delray Beach. We have one out in the Belglades area, and one in Royal Palm, which is out near Wellington, where I live.
Belglade, the Muck.
Oh, yep, out there where the big lake is, that looks like the ocean when you drive out there, right? So
It's the
the
that's
Muck
a good
Bowl, right?
there's a lot of good football players that come out of the Muck.
A lot, and a lot of good vegetables and fruits and sugar.
Sugar. Well, you got the sugar fields out there, the sugar
Yes, yeah,
canes.
it is a massive. It's just crazy to see how that stuff operates out there. But yeah, I mean, we have four salad offices and one in our main branch here. So if I got that right, one, two, three, four. Yes, five
Five.
total.
Well, we have two. So that there, let's put that in perspective. So we only have 50 employees. We just added. We just went to Department of Revenue. So for those that are listening, we can't just willy nilly hire anybody we want. We have to go to Department of Revenue and ask for additional spots. So we just went to Department of Revenue for the first time since 2007 last year and asked for an addition. So we're actually at 50. Um, we're actually at 50. This year we're actually asking for one more because we need a GIS position. So we have 50 staff members. So that's a big number. So tell me, Cecil, I'm curious this answer for you.
Sure.
Tell me one of your, tell me what, can you, if you could define your leadership philosophy and maybe one or two core principles that you maybe have brought when you were the leader of an organization in North Carolina to your current role. So
Uh,
leadership philosophy and a couple core principles that you follow.
hmm. Probably. Oh, those are good questions. Uh, Probably some collaboration. I want to make sure that we're successful in local government, and we make sure that all our departments and jurisdictions know that we have some leadership and partnerships, that we're basically having teamwork amongst our group, and a vision. Obviously, we have to have a vision. Obviously, Dorothy has a vision statement as well as a mission statement here in our office. I had one in North Carolina as well. It's clear, it's forward thinking. We're always looking to try to be on the edge of technology, as well as giving staff what they need in order to do their jobs a bit more efficiently. And I think we need to be adaptable and have empathy with staff, because there's times that you just don't know what's going on in people's lives, and you just need to know. You don't need to know their concerns, but you need to make sure that they understand that you're there to support them. But we do the same thing with our communities as well. When people call in the office and they have questions and they're very concerned about things. Yeah.
I tell our staff all the time, everybody has a story, right? And we don't know what's on the other side of that phone call or what's on the other
Exactly.
side of that story. So when they come in, man, we need to just treat them with as much compassion as we can, and vice versa, right? So a lot of our listeners will know I'm former law enforcement, former military, and so I feel like a lot of anger. I know that a lot of anger isn't directed at me personally. So when they come here or to our office, they're not necessarily mad at Craig Dalton, the Citrus County Property Appraiser. They're just maybe upset about a situation. So yeah, that empathy word is a two-way street, right? So we have to have it as leaders for our staff, and so you and I talk, or we have spoken about this, and I've talked about it at conferences and workshops. We have to have a culture where we have to understand that people have lives outside of work,
Right.
and then that the lives and the situations that they have outside of work sometimes come in and affect their daily job, and so we have to have some empathy for that as well. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
important.
absolutely important. And I think that's the other thing. We just have to let folks know that we support them, but we also know that there are times that we just need to give people some space,
Yeah.
either external customers or folks that we work with on a daily basis, right? So
I,
it's
I just I just used a word in my staff email on Friday. Grace. I love that word. Like we have to give our staff some grace if they're having a bad day. Listen, I'm not going to have a good day every day. There's no way. It's impossible.
Right.
And so there's no way I can expect that of them, and there's no way we can expect that of our citizens. And so we have to have some grace. And so that's a great word. So I'm glad you used it because I literally used it in a staff email that I sent out today. So that's a good one. So let's hit on technology, right?
Sure.
Tell me about the technology differences, maybe for North Carolina versus Palm Beach County. Any differences there?
Well, being a guy who's been in this, doing this for more than a couple of years, 30, something like that, you've seen a lot from using paper and wooden measuring tools that people used to flip over 8-foot poles to now using laser pointers, and now folks have things on their iPhones or Android phones that are actually or tablets that they do things more efficiently and tracing mechanism. Technology is like going from the Stone Age to now we're at the forefront of AI, right? That could possibly be part of the appraisal industry, which is good and bad in its points. And there's an article in IAAO about that someone wrote that I think it's a really good point about how to use AI and so forth. But I think there's a huge evolution of this that's going to still have to have appraisers be more subjective with valuations as opposed to being just, hey, this is just it is what it is because the data says that. It doesn't work that way in appraisal. And I think a lot of people miss that part of there's still a lot of tools we can use for future development, but you still have to have someone behind there analyzing the data and understanding exactly what they're looking at. So the staff that we have now, I mean, these kids, they don't know anything about a 45 record or an 8-track or a CD. I mean, they don't even know what CDs are anymore, right? Or
Yeah,
even a phone that you hang up off the wall, and because everything's right there in your hand. And I think that's where we're headed to. And I have a son who's in the appraisal industry, who works in North Carolina doing assessments, and he doesn't understand half the stuff I talk about 20 years ago that we were doing because they're doing things totally different. And I think we just have to embrace that and understand the culture is going to change. But we still need staff. We need people to be able to make decisions, informative decisions.
my buddy, my assistant property appraiser, Darren Pillsbury, who was on episode one, he actually made a quote. He said a quote, so I'm gonna put him in quotes here because I asked him that question, like, what is the difference when? So he's been in 30 years as well, and he's been in our office for 30 years. He did 7.5 years in the Air Force, and then came here,
Okay.
and so he just hit his 30-year mark on May 2nd at the Florida chapter IAAO conference when we were in Daytona. He
Oh,
hit his
wow.
30 years. He said, so last week, this was last Friday when, and you'll have to watch the episode if you didn't catch it, episode one. He said he projects. So much has changed in his 30 years, but the same amount of growth that he saw in 30 years, he projects with AI we'll see in the next 5 years.
I would
That's
I
and
agree with him.
yeah.
And that's something that Dorothy and I have spoke about. She's very big into technology. That's how
Mhm.
we can work efficiently with the. I mean, we should probably have on paper probably 300 employees, right? But we have 240, and we're doing things efficiently and more with technology. And she's big on technology, making sure that we have the right tools if it works. But I see that happening as well. That's going to be the next future of the appraisal industry. But we just have to be cautious about how that works, right? And
Yeah.
who's behind the curtain, who's the eyes behind the curtain pulling the levers, and be able to translate that to the general public when you or Dorothy or any other property appraisers have to do a speech about assessments and increases and decreases and recapture rates and so forth, blah blah. I mean, all that comes into play, but I don't think AI has thought that far yet. But it will. It'll get there eventually.
He
All the
actually
tech.
made it. I'm going to keep quoting him a little bit. He actually said that there are AI platforms training AI.
Yes,
Insane.
you're right.
That is mind blowing. That there is an AI training AI to do different things.
Yeah, I mean we're looking into maybe having some kind of internal AI function, that just
Yeah.
works in the property appraiser's office, that staff can use, but just for aid, not to actually appraised property,
Sure.
but just
Yeah, yeah.
just to help us and aid us in how we evaluate properties annually, or defend property values annually, or translate to the general public of what why we place the value on a certain property type. Um, but yeah, it's come to that point, and now they have these AI certifications that people are going after, and I just see that spilling over into the appraisal industry and how that's going to affect um, the thoughts and what people are going to start asking AI in the near future, of certain areas. But it still has to be something that's subjective because AI doesn't know the difference between um, the neighborhood that's now in gentrification or has been turned over and
Right.
how it affects values. They just see numbers. It's not they don't see how that transition is moving. Those boundaries, political, social, economic, whatever it is, the
Well, and
physical
just
things
like
there.
I mentioned earlier about the that Suncoast Parkway coming in, that changes values immediately.
Yep.
And so they wouldn't know that. The AI wouldn't know that because they don't
Nope.
see that being built.
No, they just see numbers. It's
They
kind of
just
like
see the number.
that ESPN. What was it? Numbers Never Lie, whatever that was, that
Yeah.
little episode they used to have on there. It's great, but still, someone's gonna have to really understand what they're looking at, not just looking at a bunch of data that properties that have sold and here's the square footage and here's the lots, here's the size of a lot. But no, it just still you still need someone to navigate through the minutia.
Well,
Or
just like you were talking about, sports, I'll even throw it into the spectrum of music. If you listen to a lot of songwriters, they're talking about how AI is killing music because they're not being the authentic, they're not being the authentic songwriters from the years past because
yeah,
they're just saying, "Hey, write me a love song about, I want to marry my wife," and so AI is just popping out some song and there's no emotion.
yeah. I mean, I would agree. You gotta have some skin in the game, right? So
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. You just said your son is in the industry. You've been in the industry for 30 years. You actually said the young people in your office don't know what certain things are. How does Cecil Jackson, with all this knowledge, um, mentor the young, newer employees that are at the Palm Beach County Property Appraiser's office?
hmm, I think first of all you've got to be accessible and approachable, right? Um, for example, I never thought I was going to be an appraiser, right? I think we all kind of fall in this industry and we just kind of stumble into this. Either some guy that needed a job, or you had an intern in college, or one way or the other. But you still have to be accessible and approachable, I think, to people. You have to also be, in terms of a mentor, being prepared to learn and to pair work with real life, or vice versa, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And you also have to be able to teach, not just teach why, not just the how, if that makes any sense,
Yeah.
right? And you also need some critical thinking, and you got to be, people are going to come with questions. And I think you have to be accessible again and approachable. And I think you just have to be confident and give feedback to people when it comes to that. Um, point. I know when I was in Gaston, before I left there, my idea was when I got there, I met every staff member, interviewed and talked to them, or we met on a 30-minute basis for took me like 3 months to meet everyone and talk to each individual person, find out what they like, what they dislike, what their goals are, what their personalities are, and you could see the look on some of these young people's faces. And there was a lady that worked for me, and I told her, I said, what do you want to do? She goes, I want to be an assessor. I said, well, this is what I need you to do. I want you to go back and finish your degree, which she did. I said, I need you to get a designation from IAAO, which she did. I said, and I need you to do things that makes you uncomfortable. And she goes, what do you mean by that? I said, I'm going to place you in situations that'll make you uncomfortable, but it'll grow you. You'll understand in the future what that means. Well, I didn't think I was moving to Florida. So when I left Gaston, they asked me who should replace you.
Mm.
Can you give me some recommendations? Well, I had two assistant assessors. One was in real property, one was in tangible or personal property. And I said, you need to consider this young lady as your new assessor. They're like, really? I said, yeah. I said, you've got two guys that have been doing this as long as I have, 30 plus years, and you need to find future leaders, and we've put this person in that spot. I challenged her to get our CAA designation because I did that in Mecklenburg County, and she pretty much did it from start to finish with a task force. She got her designation, she got her degree, and then lo and behold, they made her the interim tax director there, and now she's the assessor tax director, what do you want to call her? And she has been for 2 plus years. And she says, "Thank you for making me uncomfortable because if you didn't do that, I would have never been in a situation where I'm now prepared for." But you just never know what may happen, in the future. And you need to find people like you do in your office that you know are future leaders that you're going to grow and you're going to challenge them because they're going to be the next generation that's going to come up and do this. And I try to tell my kids that, and especially my son who's in assessments. I said, learn everything you can, take every course they offer you, volunteer for any task force or committees they ask to put you on, and grow. I said, as times you'll learn through this, you never know. In 10 or 15 years, you may move to a different county, or heck, you never know. You may be the assessor or assistant assessor here one day. And I think even if they don't do that, at least they had those opportunities, right?
Right.
And that's what we need
Yeah.
to give people, opportunities.
Yeah, so a few things that I'd love to touch on that you said, right? One of my favorite quotes of all time is success comes on the edge of discomfort. And I totally agree with that. Um, Nobody in my family was ever in law enforcement, so I became a cop. And I learned
Oh,
how to
wow.
handle stress and management and anxiety and leadership, and I learned all that stuff. Nobody in my family is political at all. And so when I decided to run for the Citrus County Property Appraiser's office or position, nobody in my family had any advice or counsel, and I didn't really know anybody that had done it. And so it was uncomfortable, but the greatest thing that ever happened in my professional career happened because I decided to do something that was uncomfortable. So I agree with you. I agree with that. We have to do that. We have to put our staff in that. You leaned into this a little bit, but you got to hold your people accountable too.
Yep.
That's important because we owe it to the citizens of the county, and that's important. And I think so. What you said when I asked you about some of your leadership principles, I think goes hand in hand with how we treat our citizens too. One of the biggest mistakes government makes, not just property appraiser's office, but government as a whole, is you're not approachable.
Right.
And so I think that we need to be approachable to our citizens. But I'm gonna tell you a point. I'm gonna add to your point. When I actually had a conversation with an employee when I first started here, it was week 6, and they said that they had talked to me more in my first 6 weeks there than they did the former leader in the 6 years they were here. And I feel like we have to be approachable. We can't just shut our office door and be like, "You're not talking to us." You know.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that you have to change the culture of an organization. I can tell you that I sit on the other side of this office, on the opposite side of Dorothy's office, and there are people go in and out of her office on a regular basis, and
All
folks
day.
who come in here, and it's never a point where it's a frontline worker as opposed to a senior level member who doesn't
Right.
have access to either one of us, right? And that's how it should be. And that she's created that culture here, and because I don't think that happened before she became property appraiser. And
Yeah,
I
it's
I was doing the same thing in Gaston, so I think that made a huge difference and impact on some people, and they realized that they had opportunities to grow in a organization that made them feel like they're more professional. As just I don't want to use this, so just an example, a frontline worker where they're just moving boxes from one end to the other of a building, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Something I asked Darren last week, and I'm going to ask you because I think I'm curious of your answer. You said 30 years, and he's at his 30 years. How does Cecil Jackson stay motivated?
I think it is, my motivation is I get an opportunity to work with people
Yeah.
and that I get a chance to make a difference in this community. It may not be something that a lot of people like, but it's us treating people fairly amongst 1.7 million people that live in this county. That we're not shifting the tax burden from Craig Dalton to Cecil Jackson because I'm trying to do Craig a favor, right? I'm wanting to treat everyone like, IAAO's magazine, fair and equitable. I just want to treat people fairly, and I think the best part is I get to work with people. because I believe it or not, I do like people. Some people think
Yeah.
I don't. Uh, but they just don't know me that well, right? But when they kind of get to know me, they realize that he's not that bad. He's actually a pretty cool guy. I like sneakers. I like sports. I like talking about certain things, outside of this office. And I want to make people understand that, we're all human. We all do the same things. And I put my shoes and pants on like anyone else does and come to work. But I like being here and I like being around people. I can tell you when I moved here from North Carolina, I had like 6 weeks of basically retirement, if you want to call it that. And I was going stir crazy, to the point where my wife's telling me, you need to go to work because I was like doing stuff around the house, cutting grass, doing just stupid stuff. And she's like, you don't play golf anymore. You don't do this. You don't do that. You need to go to work. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I need to get out of here. She goes, you're not ready to retire. And I knew then I need to be around people. And I need to be still back in this environment of what I've been doing for the past all my professional careers. This, I don't know any different, right? Um, and I still like doing this.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. I like being in the assessment field.
Well, and I think that you specifically are not just good for the property appraiser's office in Palm Beach County, but you're good for the Florida chapter of IAAO, and you're good for IAAO as a whole. I know I've learned a lot from you and Dorothy, and I benefit from that. So let's see if you can finish this sentence. Leadership in local government is successful when.
Oh my gosh.
Leadership in local government is successful when.
Oh my gosh. Successful when dang, that's an open loaded question there, Craig.
Listen, you need to lean into that bunny you got on your shirt.
I know, right?
It's cute.
It's successful, I guess it's successful when staff is successful as well, right? When your employees are fulfilled and they're enjoy coming to work, then I know that we're probably successful because we're getting the most out of people. It's like I tell my kids, I'm like, if you like your job, you'll make enough money to survive, right? If I know that if someone doesn't like their job, they're never going to they're not going to be successful because they're not motivated to do their jobs. But if you like what you do, you'll always make enough money. So I think if we are to the point where we're leading people to be happy when they come to work and they can leave saying, hey, it was a good day. And they're not just going home and they're falling face first on their bed, then you know that you're doing something right. And that's my motivation is to make sure that people are happy here and they like what they do.
100%. I think listen, I've got bachelor degree, I've got a master's degree, I've got a lot of things that I've accomplished in my life. I think the most gratifying thing, not counting my marriage to my beautiful wife and my kids and their successes, I think the greatest thing that I've ever heard in my career that I will go to my grave, and it's on that point, is when somebody says when they retire that this is the greatest job they've ever had,
Yeah,
and that I had a part in that. So when they go off into retirement land, because listen, I'm like you, I'm gonna have to be around people. I'm gonna probably be doing this for a long time. Is when they say like this is the greatest job I've ever had, that is huge.
I agree. I
That's a big.
agree. It's a
And
huge
so
deal.
yeah, yeah. And so listen, if I could walk around with a boom box like some of our young people won't understand this, but the boom box in the 80s and 90s and
I
play
had one of those.
music and have fun and just everybody enjoy themselves, that's all that matters. I've seen government offices, not to compare, but like when our staff leaves, like you can tell they're hungry to come back the next day. Or when they come to work, they're happy to be coming in our doors. And if you go to some other government offices, that's not the way or it doesn't have to be government, just any office,
Yeah,
any
I agree.
organization, they're like miserable. And I don't want that, man. I
I,
don't want that for our people. And I
I
don't want that for our industry.
oh, absolutely not. I mean, I try to make a point to at least twice a week minimum to walk through this office and speak to
100%.
everyone in here, and say, how are you doing? Hey, how's it going? Blah blah blah. Sometimes they don't want to talk to you, and other
That's
times
fine.
they want to stop, and you can't get away, right?
Ah,
But
listen,
but
I don't talk to my young people before 9 a.m. I know that. Like I don't do that. I don't talk to them before 9. It's after 9. After they have their Celsius energy drinks or whatever they
Right.
have, then I go talk to them. I know I talk to my, at Cecil. Fun fact: we have employees from 6 different decades in our office.
Oh, wow.
We actually have a teenager working here.
Really?
Yep, 19, graduated from high school, was going to get into real estate, and decided that she wanted to get into a career, and so we got her a job, and she's very proud to tell you she identifies as an adult, and that she turns 20 next month, and we can never say that again. I can't say that I have a teenager anymore.
Well, I can tell you that she's going to regret not being a teenager.
She's good. She's good people. All right, so this is what we're going to wrap up on. We're going to put a pretty big on this. This is going to be rapid fire, fun questions with Cecil Jackson. You ready?
Scary. All right.
Well, I don't know. You're from North Carolina. I don't know how you're going to answer this.
I already know the answer when you ask me.
Coffee or sweet tea?
Sweet tea.
First job you ever had?
I worked in a feed store with my granddad. I was 15.
Feed store. I
Yeah.
was I was a bag boy at Winn-Dixie.
Yeah.
I'm a sweet tea guy, so I'll answer these with you. What's one leadership book or podcast you recommend?
Leadership book. We have a book club here, and we just finished Crucial Conversations,
Oh yeah.
which
Yep.
was not a bad book. But that was the last one I think I read, which was kind of insightful, but it was kind of a hard to read at times, but it was a good book.
So one of my favorite podcasts slash motivational speakers slash I get a text from as I wish it was from him. I wish it was from this guy, but it's not. His name is Ryan Leake, and he writes a book called Leveling Up. And
Okay.
he phenomenal, phenomenal, phenomenal. One of his greatest quotes that I actually used it yesterday with one of my leaders. Um, what's it like to be on the other side of you? What do you think that is? Like what do you so like when you're talking about good leadership, bad leadership, like what's it like to be on the other side of you? And that resonates. That hits pretty hard. But
Oh yeah,
Ryan Lee,
absolutely.
phenomenal guy. So if you go on his website, you can sign up for a daily motivational text per se. And one of his ones this week was actually really cool. It talked about how everything's difficult until it's done.
Right.
Everything's impossible until it's done, right? Everybody thought that getting through a global pandemic was going to be difficult. Well, now you're on the other side of it, right? Everything is difficult. All right. Dream vacation after trim season.
Oh my gosh, probably. Well, I go to Aruba every year with my wife. So
Aruba. All right.
yeah, but
I hear that's
that's
a
not.
beautiful place.
It's awesome. We love it. That's why we go there every year. We've been going there almost 12 years straight.
You
15
can like
actually.
drive around on like the whole thing on a golf cart.
Oh, you can't
Right.
get lost. I mean, come on, man. But my dream vacation would probably be go to probably Paris or some European nation. I've never been.
So I'm pretty excited. You talked about IAAO back in the day, had gone to Niagara Falls. Man, I'm getting kind of gassy. And so you were in Canada. I hear so we're going to be IAAO's got a conference in Canada next year,
Calgary,
Calgary.
I think. Hmm.
And I have a buddy of mine, my guy from Raleigh, that's down here now. He's like, this is absolutely one of the most beautiful places he's ever been in his life.
Really?
Yep. And so like I'm really looking forward to that conference next year. So
Well,
that's pretty cool.
that's awesome because for Christmas, my wife and I, we don't buy gifts. We take a trip during the holiday
Yep.
season for like a 3, 4 day week trip.
Awesome.
We went to Toronto last year. No, New York City last year, Toronto the year before, San Diego, and a couple other. I'm not sure what we're going to do this year. But I love Canada and I love Toronto. I was like the New York City of, I guess, Canada. And I was
Wow.
really surprised about how friendly people were there and how clean it was.
He showed me
So
some
Calgary will
pictures.
be a good.
I don't remember the park, but it was right outside Calgary, and it looked like it was well, I'll have to just say it, like an AI generated fake photo. And he's like,
Oh, wow.
no, this is how it is at this park right outside of Calgary. So I'm pretty excited to go up there with Nancy.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Yeah, I'll definitely. Hopefully, if I get a chance, I'll see you there and we'll celebrate something
Something. You're the
for
bunny on
something.
your shirt.
Yeah. Yeah,
Cecil,
my
I
buddy.
really
Psycho
appreciate
buddy.
you, man. And I know you're only allowed to do this because Dorothy is not in the office today. So I appreciate you joining us on episode 2. I really appreciate all the mentorship that you've done for me, and most importantly,
Oh
your
man.
friendship. And I really do feel like the Citrus County Property Appraiser's Office, even though it's 50 people, and the Palm Beach County Property Appraiser's Office, which is 250, is run the same way.
Yes.
I think our ideology of leadership is the same. Our cultures are the same, and we just go to work every day to serve our citizens of Citrus County, man. So
Yeah, I agree, and I appreciate your friendship and welcoming me into Florida as a Floridian, as and also in this industry, but also your friendship and being able to finally get to moderate for you at the next conference this fall, and
I'm excited.
the big old smile on my face.
I don't want to unleash the title yet on what that presentation's going to be, but it's going to be a good one. I actually did sort of the first chapter of it, and I kind of spoke a little bit of, it's about servant leadership. I think we need to serve not only our employees, but we need to serve our citizens of Citrus County, or in your
Yeah,
reference, Palm Beach County, and when we do that, we all win. And just
I
like you
agree.
serve at home, right? I feel like, and I'll end on this. I feel like any leader, you need to look how they're leading at home, and if they're leading at home, they can lead at work, and if they can't lead at home, they're not going to be able to lead at work. So,
You're absolutely
so
right.
servant leadership is a big deal to me. So that's kind of what it's going to be about. But man, Cecil, I'm
Thank
very
you.
thankful for you.
You too,
I
Craig, and
know
thanks for
I'm
having me.
gonna throw this dagger at you before we leave. I know you're a Knicks fan. Do you think the Knicks are going to be able to pull this out in 7?
I have to say yes, but my heart says no.
Ah,
My head says yes, but I don't think they can win on the road. That's the problem.
we're going to
You know.
find out tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Cecil, thanks, man. I hope you have a great Friday. I hope you have a fantastic Friday, and we'll see you next time, man.
All right, same here, my man. Thanks. Have a great weekend.
See you, buddy.
Okay, bye bye.